welcome to the Anime Void. I'm Brian, your host, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Blood Plus manga. Now, this will be different from my normal manga obscurity videos. In those are just recommendation videos, where I'm just covering the first volume, keeping the spoilers to a minimum. Here I am reviewing all 5 volumes of the manga, from start to finish, so spoilers will be abound. And that's your warning. And while I will be covering some major differences between the manga and its anime counterpart, I'm not going to cover every single difference in minute detail because that just sounds painful. And I'm also not going to be covering the spin-off manga. Those are going to get their own videos eventually. But how about we start talking about the history of this manga a little. The manga was actually first released as a build-up to the anime, sort of just starting up the hype train. The first chapter appeared in Monthly Shonen Ace in July of 2005, 3 months before the anime would premiere in October. So this does mean that the anime and the manga were made pretty much concurrently, and despite that, they still created a pretty different tellings of the story. The mangaka for the Blood Plus main series manga is Asuka Katsura, and between the two different tellings, I do ultimately actually prefer the mangas. For the broad differences between the two, the manga does feel a bit tighter in its execution of the story, albeit it is pretty fast-paced, being contained in only 5 volumes. There is something to be said that there is a happy middle ground between how fast the manga goes and how slow the anime goes. There is a Goldilocks zone in there. But still, the plot does feel like it gets off the ground a lot better and smoother in the manga opposed to the anime, and keeps that feeling throughout, more or less. Overall, it is essentially the same exact story following amnesiac high school student Saya Otonashi, who discovers that she is actually the only person capable of killing these monsters known as Chiropteran, and is also a couple of 100 years old, is a Chiropteran herself. She learns a whole lot very fast in a way that I'm pretty sure would mentally cripple most people. But all of this does throw a massive wrench into her found adopted family life in Okinawa when she has to go out to fight these things and also fight against her own sister, Diva, and her following Chevalier. One second, it's getting really hot in here. I need to turn on the AC, so there's gonna be noise. Okay, that should help a bit. And just between you and me, it would also help a great deal if you subscribe to the channel and like the video. Getting so close to 1,000 subscribers, and I'm just so excited. Now, where was I? Right, immediate difference to note is that George doesn't die in this. Instead, Riku gets kidnapped, and that's what really starts everything off. Specifically, he is kidnapped by Carl, who is introduced immediately as the one running the show basically in Okinawa Attacks, and Vaughn is more or less his manservant, basically. Oh, and Carl is a Shota now! Don't ask questions, it's not important. Honestly, he is actually a genuinely much better written character in the manga, so he could have been a buff Catman for all I care. He's just a boy who wants to be loved rather than that Phantom of the Opera thing that would happen. And on the topic of characters changing, there are actually characters that are far less prevalent in the manga. Namely characters like Lewis, Mao, and Kaori. And that just crushes my dream of a Chevalier Kaori even more. She barely had a presence in the anime. Why would you do this to her? Hell, the journalist dude and the Schiff aren't even actual characters in this, and James gets killed immediately. And that little fact also brings up another important difference. Saya is much less of a waif in this manga. In the anime, Saya was always very weak and constantly outclassed by the other sentient Chiropteran because she doesn't regularly drink blood. Now, this is fully understandable in concept. It completely makes sense. But the execution of it led to just very lackluster action. And it also led to the confusion of how the hell was she able to fight toe-to-toe with Diva at the end, when nothing changed in that regard. Like, they always said that Diva's blood lost its toxicity to Saya, that nothing else changed about Diva's strength. Now, in the manga, it is still true that Saya is hindered by not drinking blood. However, she is shown to be way more capable with her fighting prowess and strength, and also has a fun berserk mode that has lovely Alucard vibes. Conversely to characters having less of a role, Riku actually has more to do in the manga because he isn't unceremoniously violated and murdered. It's amazing the things you can do when that doesn't happen. Sure, he's kidnapped twice, but he still becomes a Chevalier and sticks around long enough to actually use those powers, actually being taught by Solomon when he defects from Diva. In this, Riku is actually the one to start a dialogue between humans coexisting with the sentient Chiropteran, rather than labeling all of them as evil and need to die. This is because he briefly befriended Carl before he died, and that is not a Stockholm Syndrome thing, don't worry about that. And him sacrificing himself to try and save Carl, not understanding the full context of the situation and supernatural beings and stuff, is what led to him becoming a Chevalier rather than being drained by Diva. There's a joke there, I'm not gonna do it. Speaking of Diva, her role is pretty much the same as Saya's ultimate enemy, wanting to fill the world with Chiropteran, though her approach is different. She is much more like a spoiled child who doesn't understand right from wrong, rather than a spoiled brat who knows damn well she's doing wrong. At first, she doesn't even understand that Saya wants to kill her, because that's something that Diva couldn't really conceive of. She genuinely loves Saya. She loves her sister. At the end of the day, her ultimate wish is just to be together with Saya. It's Amchel who is the more string puller marionette man in the background in all of this. And I mean, yeah, sure, in the anime, he also was, but it's a bit more pronounced with that the goal to fill up the world with Chiropterans is more his desire. Like, the only thing that he wants is to just be Diva's favorite. That's all he cares about. It's kinda creepy. And also, the experimentations he does, he likes that too. And Solomon is also very on board with experimentation, being the one that really pushes the queen mating with a Chevalier experiment theory thing. So yeah, he's less of a simp, but no less creepy. And for Diva's final Chevalier, yes, I wanted to cover all of them specifically, because I regret not talking about them in the anime one, Nathan, his role is quite different. In the anime, he was a super enigmatic and interesting character that all the other Chevalier, even Amchel, kinda tiptoed around. You could tell that he was, like, the big one. However, in the manga, he is sort of just there. He's more timid and wary of Diva. His loyalty's very shaky. So much so to the point where he is actually the one to kill Diva at the end. During the final fight between the sisters, Diva's the one to get the upper hand, and is about to strike the final blow against Saya, but is unable to bring herself to do it and just starts crying. Again, like I said, she loves her sister so much. She's the only person that she genuinely cares about. She can't bring herself to kill her. Something does click inside his brain upon seeing this. It's not stated outright, so it's up to interpretation of why she goes about trying to comfort Diva from this. And my take on it is that she does see what I was saying earlier. She sees Diva being the child who legitimately doesn't understand right from wrong. She's not actually evil, she just doesn't know. And Amchel is the one that kind of steered her towards this direction. It's a nature versus nurture thing, which ironically was part of the experimentation in the whole zoo project, so it's cyclical. But while Saya is trying to comfort Diva, Nathan comes up from behind with a sword, runs Saya through into Diva, thus introducing Saya's blood into her, and killing her. And this does make Saya's desperation to quote-unquote try to save Diva at the end of the fight make much more sense in the manga compared to the anime. In the anime, it felt kind of out of nowhere. That is just like, okay, you never had this moment. You just killed her, and now it's just like, you're sad that you killed her? Why? Nothing happened between you two at this point. In the manga, they at least had that kind of connection where there was potential, not a lot of potential, because yes, Diva still did a lot of messed up stuff, but there was potential for things to get better from there. Saya does attempt to pull the sword out of Diva and into herself so that she can die as well, but Diva breaks the sword between them and tells Saya to live. From there, things go about the same way they do in the anime. Saya decides not to kill herself. Haji seemingly sacrifices himself at the Lincoln Center, holding back Amshell while the center is bombed. And Saya returns to Okinawa before entering her hibernation. The biggest difference is that instead of Diva's children, Riku and Solomon are still hanging around. And also, now that I mentioned him, I really should touch upon Haji, and also Kai. In the manga, Haji and Saya's romance is much more pronounced, and I can dig it. Like, it wasn't a secret in the anime or anything, but there is, like, the noticeable difference of it does lean more heavily into the romance in the manga. And also, while he is still pretty reserved, Haji isn't actually a wet piece of cardboard in this, which helps. And also, the love triangle with Kai is also much more pronounced, which I dig less. In the anime, Kai's feelings towards Saya always felt brother and sister to me. Yeah, they said in dialogue from another character, specifically Mao, that Kai had romantic feelings for Saya. I never bought that for a second. It always felt sibling to me. So when they're doing it in the manga, it just does not feel right. I just like the brother and sister dynamic just so much more for the two. It was so unneeded. But that aside, overall, like I said, I do enjoy the manga over the anime. Yes, it is a bit too fast-paced, but I do prefer that over slow-paced, and it's not like it's breakneck or anything, like you read one page and then they're on to the next big plot point. It's not that fast. So yes, while there are moments that could have had room to breathe a bit more, and there are things that I miss from the anime, overall the manga is just a much tighter and better constructed story. But hey, have you read the Blood Plus manga? Be sure to let me know what you thought about it down in the comments below. I'm very interested to find out. Thank you so much for watching, and I have to catch you next time in the void. Later.